There's two aspects of parental leave that are quite important to consider. The first one is unpaid parental leave, and this is an area that there's some proposed changes for. So at the moment, employees can take 12 months unpaid parental leave, and they can request an additional 12 months on top of that, up to 12 months more. So what has been proposed as a change that I guess businesses need to be aware of is that at the moment when an employee makes a request for that additional up to 12 months, they have to put that in writing to their employer, and currently the employer has to respond in writing within 21 days, and there's quite a sort of technical procedure that surrounds that. So the Abbott government have put forward a proposal that's sort of waiting to go through Senate at the moment that will require employers to also meet with employees that make such requests. And the purpose of that is really to get a discussion going and a proper consideration for the business and the employee that's affected by this. So yeah, it's not a huge change in the law, but it's quite important technical change that particularly HR and small business owners need to be aware of, that they now need to meet with people about these requests, not just respond in writing. So yeah, it's really a minor change. One of the more major changes that's proposed is to paid parental leave, and this is something I'm sure you've all heard a lot about, particularly with last year's election. So currently in Australia, employees are entitled, if they have 12 months service, to 18 weeks paid parental leave, but it's at the national minimum wage. So it's not an employee's full earnings as it is in some other countries, as you can see up here. So I've just listed a few sort of comparable countries to show you what's happening around the world. And as you can see there, I think New Zealand is the only country where an employee would be less favourable in terms of how much money they would get. And I've just given an example of an employee earning $50,000 and what they would get under each of these different systems. So as you can see, in Australia, it's about 11,000, and in most other countries it's a bit more, except New Zealand. So the proposed change that's being set forward is 26 weeks at an employee's full earnings, but there's a cap on that. So initially, the coalition came to last year's election with a cap of $150,000 gross annual, which means for the 26 weeks, $75,000, but they've subsequently reduced that with a lot of industry backlash and backlash within the coalition party and other parties. So it's now being reduced to $100,000 annual and $50,000 over 26 weeks. This particular proposal isn't currently before the Parliament, and it looks like it probably won't come before the Parliament until next year, and that it probably will be reduced even further before it does go before the Parliament. And that's obviously in light of a lot of issues around the budget and them not being able to pass all of the measures that they're intending to pass. Also a lot of comments from the Business Council of Australia and other industry groups that are quite angry that there's going to be a levy on big business to essentially pay for this proposal. Now, an interesting fact is that Australia is currently one of two nations in the OECD group that caps their payments. So if I go back to the last slide, we have the 18 weeks at the national minimum wage, whereas all of the other systems, except for America that has no maternity leave, pay on an earnings basis of what does the person going on parental leave earn, and perhaps we have a cap in place. So for example, in Canada, there's a 55% of their earnings up to a certain amount, but it means that depending on someone's earnings, they're going to get more or less money. So the proposal that the Abbott government has put forward is much more in line with the rest of the world, of having it based on earnings and then a cap. So I think we will see some change in the next sort of 12 months beyond, but I don't think it'll get to the proposed 26 weeks at the higher amount. We're more likely to see maybe 26 weeks at the minimum wage, or maybe 18 weeks at a capped amount or something like that.